business structures. What are they and why do you need to know about them? So when people start trading, you've got the option of just simply hanging out your shingle, trading, starting to run your business, and basically you are your business. Now, there are some downsides to that. One of the downsides is that if your business does not do very well and it fails, your business debts are actually your personal debts. And that is a way that you risk losing your personal assets. So if you owe somebody else business debts, they can actually sue you for them, and they will be able to take your personal property. The law doesn't differentiate between you and your business. You're the same person. If the business owes money, somebody can come after you personally. So that could be things like your car, your house. So it could be quite devastating. So most people suggest that instead of running things that way, you put into place a legal structure or a business structure that gives you some protection. It isolates you from the business debt. So if your business goes under, you are still protected and they can't take your assets. So the most simple way of doing it is by having a company. Now, if you have a company, you need to understand that there are certain obligations associated with having a company. And how a company works is that you have one or more directors and they run things. They're in charge of what happens in the company. And then you have one or more shareholders and they're in charge of, well, they're not in charge, they get the profits. So you could be a director without being a shareholder. You can be a shareholder without being a director. And sometimes, depending on how the company constitution, which is the founding document, depending on how that is worded, the shareholders sometimes have certain power over the directors. Now, the directors are responsible for what happens in the business. So although you're creating a company to isolate yourself and insulate yourself from debt, if you are a director of a company and you do certain things, you will be personally liable. So, for example, if you don't pay the proper employee tax or superannuation required here in Australia, then you would be personally liable for that. If the company goes bankrupt, it doesn't matter. You still have to pay that as the director. So that's the guy who runs the show, not necessarily the guy who gets the money. So there are on various government websites some really good guidebooks on directors' duties and obligations. And I will post in this course, I will post a link below so that you can get one of those. So the other obligations are things like you can't treat the company money as your personal money. You can only pay company expenses with the company money, and then you have to take the money out of the company in certain ways. For example, paying yourself a salary or a contractor's fee. All those finer points really are something that you should run by a tax accountant, because the accountant is the one who understands and has got all of the knowledge on how that whole process works, the nitty-gritty. So a lot of accountants recommend that rather than having simply a company, what you do is you have a company and then the company is the trustee of a trust, and then the trust runs the business. I find it a little bit complicated, I have to say. And whether you should have just a company or a trust in a company, that is something, again, to talk to the accountant about, because they know and understand about the tax implications. I am not a tax expert. I don't like tax at all, and I know the minimum about it. So I cannot advise you about tax. But I can advise you that the accountant, a tax accountant, is the best person to speak to. So when you're talking to them, the things you need to think about is ease at which you can sell the business. And so how far into the business are you? I mean, are you sort of towards the end of your working life and you only want to work in it for 10 years and then you want to sell it? Is it something that your family might take over later? And the answers to these questions will give the accountant the guidance as to what you should be doing. Personally, I think that, I certainly see too many small businesses having a complicated structure, and the complicated structure makes it more, I wouldn't say difficult for them to operate. It's more administrative hassle. And so if you're a solo person, you're running the business on your own, you don't have staff, you don't have resources, a company, I feel, is a good idea, subject to what the accountant says on tax, because it's less complicated than having the trust and the company together. But there might be very good reasons why a trust in a company is good for you. So talk to the accountant for that point. I like companies because they're simple. And then the other main type of business structure really is, well, you get a joint venture and you get a partnership. Now, a partnership is where two or more people work together for a common business goal. And a lot of people talk about partnership very loosely. They say, I'm in partnership with someone. I'm partnering with someone. What they actually mean is collaboration. A partnership has got a specific legal meaning. And what it means is that you're running a joint business. And as such, your partner can, without your consent, incur business debts, and you are fully liable for those debts. So, without your consent, your business partner can incur business debts, and you, even though you didn't agree to them, you are fully liable for those debts if you're in a partnership. I recommend avoiding partnerships unless you're in an industry that requires partnerships. I think most industries have moved away from that now. When I started my own law practice, 15 years ago now, at the time of recording this, you could only have a partnership if you were starting a law practice. But anyway, so partnerships can be tricky and they can be dangerous. And I don't think there's any good reason for people to go into partnership. If you are working together with somebody on a joint business, your best option is to look at one of the corporate structures like a company or a trading trust or a combination. And again, talk to your accountant about which one's best for tax purposes. So then that leaves collaboration, or also it's sometimes called a joint venture, which is where two individuals or businesses work together for a common business goal. This is slightly different from a partnership. A partnership usually there's one business and you're both working together for the goal of that business. In a collaboration or a joint venture, well, a joint venture can be a partnership, so you've got to be careful. But generally, it's separate businesses working together for a common goal. So, for example, in my business, I might collaborate with somebody who is good at recording videos, for example. And as part of the collaboration, I might give some marketing, some kudos to the person who helps me. So they help me record the videos. Maybe they charge me much less than a normal client. I market their business. They market my business. Other collaborations might be somebody owns a venue and somebody else is a caterer. And so they work together. Or people might collaborate on a book, for example. So the downside or the slight warning about collaborations is that very often people get so excited about working together that they don't think really clearly about and don't articulate who has what responsibility. What are you going to do if your fellow collaborator, don't call them a partner, if they don't do what you think they are going to do or what you expect them to do? So what if you thought they were going to be putting in 20 hours a week and they only do 5? How is that? How are you going to deal with that? How are you going to deal with it if the collaboration loses money instead of makes money? And that's quite simple. Usually people pitch in 50-50 for the costs, but if you are collaborating with me, for example, and I'm bringing my expertise, you might bring money instead of expertise. So it doesn't have to be financial. And then what happens if it makes a profit? Now, so are you going to split it 50-50? Is there going to be a different split? How are you going to work out whether or not you need to hire staff? What is going to happen if the business does quite well, but you don't want to work together anymore, so you want to do your thing and the other person wants to do their thing? So if you think about all of these things in advance, collaboration can work really well. And you don't need hundreds of pages of legal documents or anything like that. Bullet point strategy is often a very good starting point and help you refine. And it acts as a guide later on if things don't go quite according to plan. It is really important to deal with the ownership of any assets that come out of the collaboration. So whether it's money that comes into the business, it might be an asset like a Facebook page, for example. If I collaborate with somebody else and we create a Facebook group, who owns the group if we split up? Can I have the group? Is it your group? How do we work that out? Who owns the clients? And so it will save a lot of time, effort, and stress if you plan for these things in advance. And you can't plan for everything, obviously, but the more that you can think of in advance, the better it is. And that's why it's useful to brainstorm with somebody like me who's helped many, many, many collaborations. Sometimes even just with that brainstorming part, people come up with ideas that they didn't think about or angles that they didn't think about. And very often, they're not actually ready to collaborate yet. There's a few more things that they need to sort out before they can collaborate. Or they might need another person to come in and help with, I don't know, admin or something to get the collaboration off the ground. And so those are the different collaboration. Obviously is not a business structure as such. It's two people or two businesses working together for the benefit of the individuals or the separate businesses. Not that it does benefit the whole, but it's not one business. If it's one business, remember, it's the partnership, and the partnership is where it can get sticky and tricky. Anyway, I've got some notes which I'm going to post into this module. Really, it's something, it is so individual to each business. I cannot say what type of business entity you should have in your business. It depends on tax situation, which changes all the time. It depends on, whether you want to own this business for a very long time, whether you want to get out of it quite quickly. You need to think about capital gains tax, all of those things. So the legal aspect is what I've discussed now, but the tax aspect is something that should be discussed with an accountant each time you go into a new business venture. All the best with your business venture, and I hope you find the right structure just for you.